I want to talk about being ready for change and how change really happens, whether it happens from the outside or whether it comes from within. And how when we pursue noble goals and increase empathy, the skills that 6 Seconds calls give yourself in the 6 Seconds model of emotional intelligence, how that helps us support change for ourselves and one another. In the 6 Seconds model, we have a pursuit called give yourself. And there are two competencies there, increasing empathy and pursuing noble goals. And sometimes people wonder why those two competencies go together. And I'd like to share with you a little bit about the connection between empathy and purpose, and how when we shift from a transactional view of the world into a relational view, we're able to find more meaning and purpose in our interactions. This area, give yourself, sometimes people find confusing. And we have three parts of our model. Know yourself, that's pretty straightforward. Choose yourself, choose to be more intentional. But give yourself, like, what does that really mean? And it's super hard to translate. We've had this struggle in over 20 languages. Recently, the team in China changed the translation of give yourself to characters that literally mean connecting beyond yourself. And I think that's a fantastic way to understand what give yourself really means. When we say give yourself, what we're trying to evoke is that feeling of giving a gift, of giving something that somebody will really love. And it's not for us, but we get so much benefit from it. It feels so good when we're in that space. But it's not about our ego, it's not about controlling, it's about freely giving and having that experience of sharing something that's valuable and special to others, that's from us but not for us. What if we could do that in the way we interact day to day in our lives and in the world? How can I be of service? How can I support the world to be a better place for all of us, including myself? And in that space of giving yourself to your own purpose, giving yourself to the future that you envision, these two competencies of increasing empathy and pursue noble goals are tools or muscles that are going to help you get there. Increasing empathy is about strengthening your sense of connectedness. My personal belief is that the space of empathy is there. It's available to us. We can step into that feeling of connectedness anytime because it's there. Sometimes we feel disconnected, we feel other, we feel alien, we feel apart from. But this, just a blink away, is this space where we feel the connectedness, where we feel that we are part of this larger story. We let go of self-protection, we let go of ego, we let go of being right over others, and we step into connection. And when we're in connection, when we're living in connection, when we're in this relationship that's beyond ourselves, we feel that we have this greater capacity. We feel this sense of open-heartedness. And in this open-hearted place, we're stronger and we help others be stronger. That's what increasing empathy is about. It's a tide that lifts all of the ships. It lifts us, it lifts others. It's non-directive. We're not empathizing or empathizing. We're empathizing. And as we have this space for empathy that we step into, we invite others to step into, and we co-create it together. We strengthen it together. And the neuroscience of this is fascinating. We know from neuroscience research that when you pay attention to somebody, your mirror neurons, the part of your brain that actually is the neurological basis for empathy, when you pay attention to someone, your mirror neurons fire more strongly. And this brings up an important idea of a relational versus a transactional approach. In a transactional approach, we're quid pro quo. In a transactional approach, I do for you because you're going to do for me. We keep score. There's a tally. I want something from you. I have the power, authority, or money to ask you to do it. You do it. And this transactional approach is the way most things in our world work. And it's functional. You know, we pay our rent, we get our place to stay. We know what we're getting. There's not a lot of strings attached. It's pretty straightforward. But there's a cost. there's a cost because the more transactional we become, the harder it is to be in this relational dimension. In this relational dimension, we do because it is what is important to us and everyone. We get all the way into the relational approach, we can't even say others. Because if we're fully in the relational approach, there is no other. It's we. It's us. We have this total connectedness. So on the one extreme is this total connectedness, and this other extreme is this total separation. And in this transactional approach, it's much easier to become mechanistic. It's much easier to lose sight of who we are as people, of the deeper truth of ourselves and one another. In my lifetime, we've seen a dramatic shift towards the transactional. Let me give you an example. A couple of years ago, we were in La Rochelle, a beautiful town in France, and there's this market that spreads street after street in the old town area. And people wander the streets and they talk to the person who's caught the fish that morning. They talk to the person who's baked the bread that morning. They talk to the person who has made cheese. And shopping, it's an experience. It takes all morning. You spend hours wandering through this market, finding the bread that you want, finding the bread vendor that you know. Oh, that bread vendor's out today, so you have to find his cousin. You know, it's a relational process. And that relational process, it's not efficient. But it feeds something in us. It fuels something in us. It makes us connected to community. It makes the food that we're eating more than just food. This relational process is part of how we create meaning in our lives, as opposed to shopping online, which is super convenient. You know, you go in there and you click and it gets delivered to your door, and you know, you can put it on auto pay and you can put it on auto delivery and you don't even have to think about it. It's easier, but there's a cost. So we have this balance between what's easy and in some ways more comfortable, but more isolated. And on this other side, something that's more complex, that's more nuanced, that's more subtle, but and slower. And we can apply this paradigm to so many things in our lives, to our work, to how we get to work, to our neighborhood, to where we live, to how we interact with others, to how we see our families. And of course, during the pandemic, this has been magnified by the fact that we're all even more isolated and having an even more transactional interaction with the world around us. The risk is that as we slide more into this space of convenience and transactionality, we lose the ability to connect in that relational way. And this is one of the reasons why the practice of emotional intelligence has become even more important today. As the pressure towards transactionality increases, we have the opportunity to balance that with more skill and attention to the relational way of connecting. And in that more relational way, we start to find greater meaning, not just in what we're doing, not just in achieving the outcome, but in who we are being in those relationships and how those relationships become part of who we are. And this brings us to the last competency in the 6 seconds model, which is about finding purpose inside yourself, about living on purpose, not about doing something more purposeful, not about chasing after an external goal, but about feeling that sense of purpose in you and bringing it to life in the moment. We use the words pursue noble goals. And the word pursue can be very confusing to people because one definition of pursue is chase after with hostility. And that's not what we mean when we say pursue. When we're talking about pursuing a noble goal, it actually might not even be visible. It might be just happening inside ourselves. And this brings us to a principle from emergent strategy and a principle from Gandhi's Satyagraha, which is about be the change you wish to see. It's about what happens on the inside is what really creates the difference on the outside. Adrienne Marie Brown talks about the fractal nature of change, that the micro becomes the macro, and the macro becomes the micro. Change happens on the inside of us and around us, but we can't control what's around us. We can control what's inside us. And so at 6 seconds we say all change starts on the inside. And when we talk about pursuing a noble goal, what we're talking about is bringing that change that we want to see in the world inside us and inviting ourselves to be the person we really mean to be, so that we are giving to the world more of what we want to give to the world. And that is the nature of Give Yourself. It's about that sense of purposefulness of what we want in the world reflected inside us, connected with increasing empathy so that we are in that space of connectedness with others. And that is when the purpose is clear and the connectedness is strong, that is when we have our greatest influence to be change makers in this subtle, powerful way driven by emotional intelligence.